Okay, let's get into it. Today we are doing a deep dive into a novel that, well, it really defined the early 2000s for a lot of people. Alice Sebold's 2002 book, The Lovely Bones.
It was a phenomenon. And our mission today is to really unpack what made it so compelling. Because it's such a high-wire act of a story. It tries to find something beautiful after something truly horrific.
And that horror is presented from such a unique perspective. That's the hook, right?
That is the core of it. The whole story is narrated by Susie Salmon. She's 14 years old, and in the first few pages, she tells us she's been raped and murdered by her neighbor.
But she keeps telling the story.
She does. She's watching her family, her friends, even her killer, all from what she calls her personal heaven.
That brings us to the title, which is just so poignant. When you find out what it means, it's not what you'd think.
Not at all. Susie explains it herself. She says the title refers to the lovely bones that had grown around my absence.
So it's metaphorical.
Completely. These bones are the new connections her family and friends form. As she puts it, they're sometimes tenuous, sometimes made at great cost, but often magnificent. It grounds the whole story in this idea of healing.
Even if the start is just pure horror. I mean, let's lay out the basic facts of the crime.
Okay, so the date is December 6, 1973. The place is Norristown, Pennsylvania. Susie is killed by George Harvey.
Her neighbor, a guy who just lives down the street.
Yeah, 36-year-old bachelor. And what's so chilling is his hobby. He builds these incredibly detailed dollhouses. It's such a mundane, creepy detail.
And then the crime itself is just cold efficiency. He puts her remains in a safe and just dumps it in a sinkhole.
Right, and that lack of a body, that absence, is what just shatters the Salmon family. They all react in such different and honestly destructive ways.
Her father, Jack, he gets obsessed.
Completely.
Yeah.
He is convinced from the start that Harvey is the one, but he has no proof. And that obsession leads him to, well, it leads him to get beaten nearly to death.
In a cornfield, right? It was a misunderstanding with some other teenagers.
A terrible misunderstanding involving two other neighbors, Clarissa and Brian Nelson. Jack ends up with a broken leg, and it's this, physical symbol of his broken emotional state. He couldn't protect his daughter.
And then you have the mother, Abigail, who goes in the complete opposite direction.
So she flees. She can't handle being in the house, in the town. She ends up leaving her other two children, Lindsay and Buckley, for years.
And moves to California. And she has an affair with the detective on the case.
With the investigating detective, Len Feinerman. It shows how trauma can just make people completely abandon their lives.
But someone has to step in.
That's Grandma Lynn. She's this eccentric, alcoholic grandmother who moves in and, in her own chaotic way, she holds things together for the kids.
So while all this is happening on Earth, Susie is watching. And she's not just a passive observer. This is where the book gets into some really strange fantasy territory.
It absolutely does. The most memorable example is when her spirit actually enters the body of another classmate, a girl named Ruth Connors.
Why? What'd she do?
So she can have one moment, one kiss, with the boy she had a crush on, Ray Singh. It's this desperate spiritual attempt to connect one last time.
Wow. And speaking of desperate acts, what about justice for the killer? For George Harvey? He's never actually caught, is it?
No, the police never get him. The book completely avoids a typical courtroom ending. His fate is much stranger.
It's just so random.
So random. Years later, he's in New Hampshire, he's stalking another woman, and a huge icicle just happens to fall off a branch, hits him on the shoulder, and knocks him backward into a ravine. He just dies. An accident.
Cosmic justice, I guess.
Or just.
Yeah.
A bizarre random event. It's really up to you to decide, which is probably why the critics were so divided on this book.
Right. On one hand, you had the New York Times book review calling it a high-wire act, saying Sebold somehow found this almost perfect balance between the awful and the beautiful.
But then you have Philip Hensher from The Observer, who had a totally different take. He called it slick, overpoweringly saccharine, and unfeeling. He felt it made the violence feel sentimental.
Which is the big question, isn't it? Does the Lovely Bones idea work, or is it just a way to soften an unbearable horror?
Exactly. Sebold herself said that the book has faith and hope, but she never intended it to be like a religious commentary on the afterlife. It was just a framework to explore what comes after.
And that framework was clearly powerful for a lot of people. It led to the 2009 Peter Jackson film.
It did, and Stanley Tucci got an Oscar nomination for his role as Harvey. It was terrifying. There was also a stage play adaptation in 2018.
So it leaves you with this final kind of provocative thought. Can something truly magnificent and whole really grow from such a profound tragedy? Or is that idea itself a comforting fiction we tell ourselves?
It's a tough question, and the book leaves you with it, along with Susie's very last words to the reader, a simple wish for a long and happy life.